Now, as I've said in some of my videos, the way I use astrology as an escape matrix is realizing that these planets are the original archons, and the archons are what keep us in the reincarnation loop. So I actually want to read something to you because Hellenistic astrology or ancient astrology, which is what I practice, I do not practice modern Western astrology. Please do not lump me in the category. Don't even call me an astrologer. Actually, I would rather not be labeled with what is going on out there and is called astrology. But in the Hellenistic ancient astrology tradition, the archons are the builders of the physical universe. So even in the writings of the Nag Hammadi, the archons are the rulers and are related to the 7 planets, and they prevent souls from leaving the material realm. So listen very carefully. The 7 planets are the archons. So the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn are the archons. So those are the inner 7 planets that are personal within your chart, whereas the outer planets, all the way to the Kuiper belt, are generational significations. So the 7 inner planets are the rulers of the 12 signs. Those 7 inner planets are the archons, and they, again, prevent souls from leaving the material realm. All of them, including what people consider a benefic planet like Jupiter or Venus, okay? Those inner planets are what holds the matrix together. And the way I use astrology is, for instance, if you have Pluto crossing your sun and you don't know what Pluto means, and Pluto, as I've described before, is basically hell and the underworld, powerlessness, and the story of the abduction of Persephone, in which she is taken down into the hell realm and forced to marry the Dark Lord in hell. Now, Pluto is personal when it's going over one of your personal planets, especially your luminary, like your sun. So then it becomes personal, even though it's really a generational planet. And you'd have to read my blogs because I can't say everything that I need to say on my videos. You must read the blogs at galacticshamanastrologers.net to really understand what is going on. And I share a lot of videos which I would like you to watch and be aware of in those blogs that I cannot even refer to because it's too difficult with the censorship. So anyways, if you're unconscious of these archons that prevent you from leaving the matrix, that hold the souls in matter, in materiality, then you will act very unconsciously and re-traumatize yourself. So for instance, if you have Pluto crossing your sun and you don't know it, you might do something really crazy, like chase your 16-year-old daughter in a high-speed car chase over Vermont roads, okay? So what's important about astrology is how to conserve your energy from these archonic, and what does archon mean? These are demons, okay? This whole solar system is demonic, as I've said. Is how to conserve your energy so you're not tricked into another trauma that depletes your soul, that traumatizes you so deeply that you don't have your wherewithal in your consciousness to leave this matrix when your body is finished and go directly to the void. So if you're unconscious about that, it's likely that you will just drive really fast at 120 miles per hour and chase your 16-year-old daughter. But if you meet with me as a Hellenistic astrologer, I would say that it's ruthlessly ripping away anything that you are attached to. So please do not chase your daughter at 120 miles per hour, because your mind is not in a clear place. It's in a place of trying to not be dragged down into the underworld. But the more that you resist it, actually, the way that these archons work is the more ruthless they are. So it's better to know what is happening in your chart as a transit like that. Say, Pluto's going to be crossing your sun between now and next March. Please have a lot of support. Please hug your daughter, but do not do a high-speed car chase. And that's very simple. I can accomplish that with a client within 5 minutes, okay? So the way to use astrology is not to believe something horrible is going to happen. It's about making sure that these archons, which are demons, are potentially going to be affecting you. Yes, even the sun is an archon, okay? All of it, the whole solar system is demonic. And you'd have to go back and study Sophia, and Sophia swallowed Yaldabaoth and created monsters, okay? The monsters then became the solar system. They are the archons, okay? And all of them, Venus and Jupiter, which are also considered benefic, are archons. In fact, I don't think that the elites worship Saturn. I think they worship Venus. So this is going to be a huge flip to the script for you, but I have shared a video before in my blogs about the black sun, and the black sun that creates this synthetic reality, this AI realm that we're in, through a projection that looks like a Mason tool, but is actually the pentagram of Venus. And I actually believe that the whole horror story about the Messiah being crucified is the story of Venus. In fact, if you look at the cross, the shape of the cross with the Messiah's head on top, that is the shape, that is the symbol of Venus. And I actually do not believe that Yeshua was crucified, but the elites who worshiped that blood rite really basically told the story of Venus in her descent into the underworld to meet the dark sister. She goes down into the underworld and meets Ereshkigal, where she is charged as guilty too. And all you have to do is watch my video about Inanna's descent called I Am Guilty Too, to recognize that whole thing of the descent into the underworld and then the rising again as a morning star is what the Christians actually called or attributed to Yeshua. And I believe that the whole blood rite of the killing of the Messiah is the worship of the elites around the pentagram Venus. And Venus makes the Fibonacci sequence, which makes this whole material realm, which is Yaldabaoth's realm. So Yaldabaoth, Venus, and Sophia are very connected. And if you read my last blog, I talk about Venus's birth story is actually the castration of Uranus. So it's a castration. It's another blood event. It's like the semen and the blood and the testicles fell into the ocean and Venus was born. And yet we think of her as some fabulous planet. Pay attention, folks. Please read my blogs, because in the ancient world, it was known that this is Yaldabaoth's realm. This is basically Satan's realm, okay? And what we do here with astrology and these 7 archons, which are the inner planets, is we learn how to not be consumed by the machine. Now, since I've learned about the machine elves, I've also really thought about, these elves are the stories that I have been told and told my children, and been very connected to this like fourth dimensional elemental realm where these fairies and elves can like abduct you. You know how those stories were about how don't go out and cross over between the worlds and let the fairies abduct you, because you might be there for years and years and years and years and years and suddenly wake up from this drunken chaos scene of the fairies and the elves and want to go home, and you realize that you've been there for lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes, and then you go home and home is not what it was. So I used to read this book to my daughter called Dear Millie. Dear Millie. And I read it to her so many times. And it was basically about this little girl who was abducted into another realm, and the moon was there. And there was like, she went into this other realm. And then when she came back, she had been abducted for so long because the other world, which is the machine elves running this whole synthetic reality, had abducted her. I actually think that we're all abducted by the machine elves. Why? Because the planets are the Archons, and they all cause trauma. So the whole karmic reincarnation loop is like, you are not going to get here and avoid karma. You are not. If karma was real, which karma is not real, but the machine elves will give you the life review, because they're all in the phantom matrix now as digital, whatever they are, right? They can shapeshift into something else. And they give you the life review and say, oh, you chased your daughter at 120 miles per hour. That was very dangerous. You should come back again and make amends with her and work your whole trauma with your daughter out. That's the trick of the machinery here. So not only should you be aware of the astrology here, but be absolutely sure that those machine elves will be acting as the quote fates when your life review comes. But remember, everything that's happening here is a wormhole technology. This is all illusion. All of this is illusion. So that's why I don't advise you to get past life regressions, quantum healing hypnosis, channeling, asking psychics for information, because everything is an illusion. Everything that has ever happened was a technology being placed in a digital realm with Archons as the solar system, basically trapping your soul. Did you hear what I said about that? Archons in Gnosticism, and as written in the Nag Hammadi library, are the rulers, each one related to the 7 planets, that prevent souls from leaving the material realm. Now, what's also interesting to me, when I studied Sophia, who is the demiurge who gave birth to Yaldabaoth, who is the ruler of this realm, she actually departs by giving up her physical body, her what's called corporeity, meaning her corporal vessel. And she gives that up. She abandons the body and calls it woman from woman. So I also think that she is showing us the way out. So she realizes this is a monster realm, and there's nothing she can do about the monster child that she took in, Yaldabaoth, who is the severing from the absolute nothingness to make all of this material realm. That's what Yaldabaoth is. So she takes that child and realizes all of this is going to be demonic, all of it, including the machine elves. Even Terence McKenna said they were joyful, but they were demonic. Okay, so when you listen to Terence McKenna, he's very in love with this realm and in love with all the possibilities of exploring. He's an explorer. But ultimately, we're in a demonic realm. If you want to leave, you have to return to the void. And to return to the void, realize that even that session, which I have been giving, could be hijacked. How will you know if the void is hijacked? If there's something in it. So the one thing I want to tell you about the void and the client sessions that I've been doing is there's nothing there. The void is the absolute, and there is nothing there.
So in all those, you would say, beliefs, I don't really want to go into the discussion about the flat earth or the round earth, but there's something very, very interesting here that I would like to invite everybody to think about. Because you see, as per the ancient texts, they all talk about the firmament, correct? They all talk about next levels above the firmament. And they talk about the stars, the constellations, being positioned above. And of course, everybody can say, well, yeah, that's the situation in the sky. But that's not what the ancient texts specifically say in terms of the location. They actually talk about a dimension. So, moreover, if you look to the Babylonian creation myth, the Enuma Elish, it talks about the god Marduk creating the zodiac. Mm-hmm. When you look into the Hermetic text, Corpus Hermeticum, the Nag Hammadi texts that were discovered, every single of those texts, the Kabbalah, the Vedas, every single of those texts talk about some kind of creator creating the zodiac, creating the reincarnation cycle.
Program, right?
Absolutely. Creating, and every single one of those texts never refers to any of it being positive, empowering. It's actually the opposite. Every single one of it talks about suffering. Mm-hmm. That is a result of this mechanism. Mm-hmm. So this is what I would like to bring to everyone's attention, because I think this is something that is never discussed in astrology, because we get told about the lessons, and this is the heavenly bodies, and they move, and this is just how it is. But think about it. How many lessons can one person really go through? How many lessons do we really need to go? If we come here as those empowered souls, those massive embodiments of the source, why do we have to go through lessons here? Why do we have to suffer? Why do we have to learn? What is there to learn? Experience.
That's what they say a lot in the New Age as well, don't they?
Exactly. Absolutely.
It's another, like every single frigging trauma in your life, it's just a learning lesson, isn't it?
Exactly. Absolutely. And, you know, I think that there's a difference. Of course, there are some people who really need to kind of level up, and perhaps they go into the victim mode, etc., etc. And there is something that needs to be done there. But most of us, really, when you look at it, all this learning and all this growing, it only happens because most of us in childhood have undergone certain experiences, or probably even dragged them in the cellular memory from some past lives, that this is what we really need to heal from.
Yeah.
So what kind of loop are we really talking about, right?
Yeah.
So when I looked at all of that in that context, really the kind of picture that emerged, first of all, who is Marduk? Who are those gods that ancient texts are referring to? Are we talking source? I don't think so. No. Why would the source want to impose suffering and some kind of reincarnation with no escape cycle? So what we're really talking about, and again, back to the Babylonian creation myth or the Vedas, they all talk about the creation of the world. And they refer, obviously not in the most direct way, but you know, this is also the effect of interpretation and the translation. we're talking about some kind of race that basically was present here, much more advanced than the humans at the time. And most likely what we're talking about here, and I will dare to say it, is that race has either used some kind of celestial phenomena that was already there, or fully from scratch imposed the zodiac in order to basically draw energy from us, which is what we know is happening.
So it's like the cage that was built around us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if we could perhaps refer to the slide where I show the different cosmologies across different cultures, all of them, as you can see, show the firmament and the stars, or some gods are up there in heaven. Are we really talking only firmament, or are we talking a control mechanism, a construct of very advanced technology, probably well beyond our even current understanding? Are we talking about some kind of very, very advanced AI, or some kind of other structures that are put in place in order to run the whole reincarnation machine that is absolutely openly spoken about in the ancient texts?
Sorry, just on that point, because it's really important. So you're saying that in these ancient texts, and I haven't studied them at all really, but they talk about the soul mill matrix.
Absolutely, specifically Hermes Trismegistus. He talks in the texts that are attributed to him, Corpus Hermeticum, the Asclepius, Nag Hammadi texts. They were discovered in not that recently, but this is quite fresh information, the last sort of decades or so, and it's still being translated. But those things are not even hidden. Enuma Elish, specifically, that's the Babylonian creation myth, specifically says that Marduk created the zodiac, and he sort of made a connection between other gods, the gods, and the zodiac, so that they could impart their powers onto people. It openly says that he created the moon.
Wow.
It actually, it's
really.
It does, yes, it does. Specifically says, because obviously we are totally on the same page in regards to the moon and the whole idea of what astrology is. Astrology basically decodes. It's like the reading of the barcode. When the soul incarnates into here, or just goes on this sort of reincarnation cycle, it basically gets like scan of a barcode, right? You get imprinted certain information about yourself. You get sent into certain family, into certain circumstances, into certain culture, certain limitations, certain skills, certain life. There's some level of determinism to it. As much as we want to talk about free will, I'm sorry, but get a good astrologer and you'll be very surprised.
It's an illusion with free will in this reality, for sure.
Unfortunately, however, the positive side, just not to scare everybody so much, is that the text also says, specifically the Gnostic text, there's a lot of Gnostic texts that talk about it, that the ignorance is the reason why people suffer. What is the ignorance? It's actually the lack of consciousness. It's the lack of this kind of understanding of what we're dealing with. It's majority of people, I mean, think about it, 90% of the world would never even be interested in astrology. And I don't even blame them to an extent, because majority of astrology is absolute nonsense, because we never get down to the real bottom of things, right? And that's why it's also ridiculed. Because they don't want you to find out the mechanism that they are keeping you under. And astrology is exactly the code to decipher this construct.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that in a minute. It's absolutely fascinating. But what I don't understand is why are no other astrologers speaking like you're speaking when it's in all the ancient texts? And why so much resistance when you approach these topics in the way that you approach them? I don't understand. Is it just still a case of them being trained a certain way and not wanting to look past that? But the information's there. You've just said it.
I think
going deep enough.
I would say so, because you see, the thing is that if you are interested in astrology, you would like to study astrology, there are plenty of courses online that you can take, which will only go into technicalities. They will tell you, okay, look at these aspects, these are the planets, these are the archetypes, these are the zodiac signs. They never go deep into the ancient texts. That's what I'm saying. Most of the tropical astrologers, they don't even know they're dealing with the zodiac. That's actually from 2000 years ago. So and Babylonian astrology specifically is very it's a kind of like a niche. There's not many people who practice this type of astrology. So I think that the amount of people, the astrologers that actually go down and read the text is very small. Once you even find those that do that, the problem with these texts is that they are written in a very special way, in a kind of alchemic way. So there are levels to them. Depending on the level of your sort of consciousness or ability to decipher the message, you either gonna read it on a face value, like most people read the Bible, and it's a good story and Jesus will save them, or they go down onto the deeper level and they start seeing the mystery schools, the very high level of initiations, the very high level of alchemy that takes place, and mythology that's much more than just mythology. So I think that's the problem. You know, how many people are really awakened? I still have conversations with a lot of people about what happened the last 2 years. I mean, how many people really even understand what's going on in the last 2 years, right? I mean, that's sad. But amongst those people, you have astrologers who, and it makes me laugh when I hear all those analysis of whatever the current nonsense is happening, the court trial of the celebrities. Oh, let's have a look into their charts. I mean, how pointless and ridiculous. This is there's nothing to look for there. This is just a subject thrown by the elite so that you don't look over there, right? I mean, what's the point? Like, how much bait are you gonna take before you wake up yourself, right?
Yeah.
So